Welcome back to the channel. Tonight's story follows a group of kids from a quiet American town who just wanted a little adventure. What they found instead was something that never wanted them to leave. And when they did, it followed them home.
Most kids in Millfield, Oregon, had heard the stories about the old Marrow House. It sat at the edge of town, past the rusted railroad tracks, behind a chain-link fence that had long since collapsed under years of neglect. Half covered in ivy and covered with graffiti, it was once a state-run home for those with mental health struggles. Closed decades ago, after a fire in the East Wing took 7 lives, 5 of them children. The adults in town didn't talk about it much, but every kid knew you weren't supposed to go near it. So of course, that's exactly what we did. It all started on a Thursday afternoon. Boredom in a small town can be dangerous, especially during the summer. School was out, and we were stuck in that strange spot between childhood and something more. Brave enough to be reckless, curious enough to get ourselves into trouble. There were 5 of us. Jake, our unofficial leader, confident, daring Maya, the one with the flashlight and guts to match Dylan, our walking encyclopedia of horror movie trivia. Sarah, quiet but sharper than all of us, and me, Lucesta, one who really should have said no. Jake brought it up casually. 1 hour, that's it. We go in, take some pictures, maybe find a ghost or 2, and get out. We met as the sun began to set. The house loomed in the fading light like a forgotten giant. Its windows were black holes, and the roof sagged like it had surrendered years ago. The front door was chained shut, so we slipped in through a broken window on the side. The glass was shattered long ago, and the smell hit us immediately. Damp, mildew, smoke, and something oddly sweet, like decay. Inside, the air was thick and heavy. Dust floated through our flashlight beams like tiny ghosts. The wallpaper peeled off in strips, and faded children's drawings clung stubbornly to the walls. One drawing showed a stick figure with black circles for eyes and red crayon smeared around its mouth. Creepy, but not haunted, Jake whispered. He was wrong. The deeper we went, the colder it became. We reached what used to be the common room. Moldy couches sat under a broken ceiling fan. A small toy piano rested in the corner. Maya pressed a key. It let out a flat, distorted note. A second note played by itself. Dylan laughed nervously. Maybe it's the wind. There's no wind, Sarah said. She was right. Something shifted in the corner of the room. Our flashlights snapped toward it, but nothing was there, just empty space. Then came the footsteps upstairs, heavy, slow. 1, ... 2, ... pause, ... 3. Jake signaled us to follow, because, of course, he did. We climbed the stairs carefully. Each step groaned beneath our weight. The hallway above was darker. The doors on either side mostly closed except one, room 206. Inside, it looked untouched. A child's bed made neatly. A teddy bear sitting on the pillow. A dresser with a cracked mirror. And above the bed, carved into the wall in childish handwriting, "Stay with us." I turned to leave, but Maya gasped. She pointed at the mirror. There were 5 figures reflected, but only 4 of us were standing in front of it. My heart was pounding. "I'm out," I said. We ran. We bolted down the stairs, out the window, and didn't stop until we reached the safety of the clearing. No one spoke, not a single joke, Even Dylan was silent. At home, I told my mom we went biking. She noticed my shaking hands. I lied. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw room 206, that stupid teddy bear, and behind it, a dark shape in the corner I hadn't noticed before. When I finally drifted off, I dreamt I was still inside the house, in the hallway, with the door creaking open. The next day, things got worse. Jake called me early, his voice shaky. Something was in my room last night. I didn't answer. Maya texted. Her dog wouldn't stop growling at the closet. She said she heard childlike laughter coming from inside. Sarah's message was short. Something's wrong. My mirror cracked on its own, and Dylan, no reply. By the second night, we all knew it hadn't stayed in the Marrow house. It had come. With us, Jake was the first to say it out loud. He showed up at Maya's house just after midnight, pale and trembling. His parents thought he was sick or having a nightmare, but Maya knew better the moment she saw his face. There was something in my room, he whispered. It called my name. It pulled my blanket off, and it smiled at me. Lucas, I swear, it smiled, but I wasn't there. I'd already stopped answering my phone. The next 2 days only got worse. Sarah's dad found her standing, barefoot, in the backyard at 4 a.m., eyes wide open. She didn't remember getting up. Her nightgown was wet with dew, and her hands were covered in dirt. She dug a hole 3 feet wide, 2 feet deep. I think it told me to, she whispered. Dylan's little sister said she saw him talking to someone in his closet, a girl in a white dress with no eyes. That night, the family cat was found, dead, strangled by its own leash, and me. I had gone silent. I didn't go to school. I didn't text. I wasn't home when Jake and Maya came by, but my bedroom light was on. Through the window, they saw the floor covered in open books, some torn, some burned at the edges. A notebook sat in the middle, filled with strange symbols. On the wall, written in thick, black marker, were the words, "Only one can leave." Maya pounded on the window. Lucas, no answer. She turned to Jake. We need help, but no one was coming. When we told our parents, they all reacted the same way. You kids have wild imaginations. Stop watching scary movies. Maybe you're stressed. Enough with this haunted house nonsense. No one believed us. Not when Jake's walls seemed to bleed. Not when Maya woke up with handprints on her arms. Not even when Dylan disappeared. The police found Dylan's bike near the railroad tracks. It was broken in half bent, as if crushed by a heavy force. No blood, no body, just static from his broken phone. Still recording something we couldn't understand. Sarah stopped leaving her room. She boarded up her windows and refused to eat. She screamed at her parents when they tried to open the door. I see it in the mirror, she kept saying. It wears my skin. It pretends to be me. On the third night, her mom found her slumped in the closet. The mirror was shattered at her feet, written across the broken glass, smeared in lipstick. Asterisk after Sarah's terrifying breakdown. Everything spiraled faster than we could imagine. Jake wanted to run away. He packed a bag in secret, stole his dad's car keys, and planned to drive until he was far from Millfield. But something stopped him. It was Malukas. I hadn't answered his calls for days. He still remembered the look on my face back at the Marrow house, the way I stared into the darkness, like I saw something no one else could. So instead of leaving, Jake went back to the house, back to me. When he arrived, The front door was open. Inside, it smelled the same, that damp, musty stench mixed with something else, fear. The long hallway was lined with children's drawings like before, but now the stick figures had faces Jake recognized. Sarah, Dylan, Maya, and himself, all 5 of us, standing side by side, except one figure was scribbled out, blacked out with violent strokes. Me. Jake found me in room 206. I sat cross-legged on the floor, a single candle flickering in front of me. My eyes were bloodshot. My arms bore shallow cuts. Pages filled with strange symbols were scattered around, stained and burnt. Jake stepped forward cautiously. "What is this?" I didn't look up. "An answer to what?" he asked. I met his eyes. "To how I survive, and how the rest of you don't." For a moment, Jake didn't understand. Then he noticed the knife in my hand, and the deep scratches on my arms, and the dark shape in the corner of the room. A tall, thin figure with 2 long fingers and a mouth that never closed. "You brought it here," Jake whispered. "Did you make a deal?" I smiled, tired and broken. "I didn't make a deal. I just ... agreed." Jake took a step back, but the door slammed shut behind him. Outside, Maya stood at the gate, heart hammering in her chest. She hadn't wanted to come back, but something had drawn her, their voice in her dream the night before. A child's voice whispering, "We don't want him, we want you." She wasn't sure who we was, or who him meant. Inside, she heard Jake's scream. She ran, not her. By morning, Jake was gone. His parents filed a missing person report. Search parties combed the woods and abandoned buildings, but no one ever found him. Only his phone, still recording, just like Dylan's. That left only 2 of us, Maya and me. But Maya wasn't herself anymore. She wasn't sleeping. She wasn't eating. She wasn't living. She was waiting for it to come, because she knew I had given something not mine. Maya didn't attend Jake's memorial. She stayed in her room, curtains drawn, door locked. Her parents didn't press her for answers. Everyone was grieving, but Maya's silence was different. It wasn't sadness. It was fear, a quiet, pulsing dread, shadowing her every move. She hadn't spoken to me since Jake vanished. She wasn't sure if I was still ... human ... or if I ever had been. It was Thursday, again exactly 1 week since we first entered the Marrow House. The sky was heavy and gray. The town felt hollow, as if pieces of it had been taken. Maya started seeing shapes in the corners of mirrors. Shadows moved where none should. Her bedroom clock stopped every night at exactly 2:06 a.m. The same number carved above, room 206. She knew it was coming, not just for her, for everyone. She finally went back to the house, not because she was brave, but because the alternative was worse. Waiting. The front door was chained shut again, with rusted locks and a rotting plank of wood. But the back window, the one we'd used that first night, was wide open, as if it had been waiting for her inside. It was darker than it should have been. The air thickened and her flashlight flickered. As if struggling to stay alive, she made her way to room 206, her heart pounding. Each step echoed like footsteps inside a cathedral. I was there, standing in the center of the room, surrounded by dozens of lit candles, my eyes sunken, face pale, lips cracked in my hands. A small wooden box, blackened and burned at the edges. "You came," I said quietly. Maya didn't answer. I turned slowly, eyes glassy. I didn't want it to be you. I tried to offer Jake first, then Dylan, then Sarah. Her voice trembled. What did you do? I asked for help. I said simply, we were going to die. I saw it that first night. The thing in the mirror. It showed me everything. I stepped closer. It said we woke it, and someone had to pay. But if I gave it the other sif, I let it take them, Maya could be spared. Maya's stomach twisted. You killed them. No, I said quickly, not directly. I just didn't. Stop it. Her breath caught. You fed it. I nodded, double quotes. And now you want me to be the last piece. She ran, not down the hall, not out the window, but into the east wing of the house. The part that burned, the part no one ever talked about. The moment she crossed the threshold, the temperature dropped. The hallway was warped, scorched, and blackened. Wallpaper curled like burned skin. The air smelled of ash and bone. She felt it, following, not me. The thing, it moved, in flashes, in corners, in her breath, in the walls. It whispered, voices that weren't its own. Jake's laugh, Sarah's sobs, Dylan's screams. You don't belong here. It hissed. She stumbled into a room. The walls were covered in soot beneath the burn marks. Hundreds of desperate, childlike drawings. All showed the same thing. A dark figure standing among children. Its face blank. Its hands dripping with red dot. In the center of the floor was a circle, crude, drawn. In chalk, surrounding it, were 5 names. Jake, Dylan, Sarah, Lucas, Maya, Dot, all crossed out, except hers. I appeared in the doorway, panting. I didn't choose you, I said. It did. But if you go willingly, I can end this. Maya stepped into the circle. The air went still. The candles outside, in the hallway, extinguished one by one. She looked at me and then smiled. I'm not going willingly. She pulled a small silver locket from her pocket. Her grandmother's. Inside was a piece of parchment her grandmother had given her months ago. Words written in Arabic, a protective prayer. She never believed in it until now. The moment the locket opened, the air screamed, the shadows recoiled, the floor cracked, the circle on the ground shattered like glass. I screamed, clutching my head. The thing in the hallway roared, revealing itself at last, towering, faceless, made of ash and stolen voices. But it couldn't cross the threshold. The locket glowed in Maya's hand. The drawings on the walls burst into flame, and then silence. I woke up in a hospital bed. My legs burned. My lungs felt like they were filled with smoke. My parents wept quietly by my side. The Marrow House had caught fire. Again, they said. I was lucky, the only one found inside. Lucas's body was never recovered. Neither were Jake's, Sarah's, or Dylan's. The police called it arson. The town called it a tragedy. I called it a curse. I never spoke about what happened. Not to my parents, not to the doctors, not even when I turned 18 and moved far away. But I never forgot. Every year, on the same night, I woke up at exactly 2:06 a.m. 10 years later, I received a package, no return address. Inside was a Polaroid, 5 of us standing in front of the Marrow House. The day before everything went wrong, but something was off. We were all smiling, even Lucas, and behind us, in the upstairs window, a tall, dark figure, watching, waiting. I never understood what it wanted, or why it chose us, but I know it's still there, waiting for the next curious souls, the next reckless kids, brave enough to enter the old marrow house, the place where only one can leave, and sometimes even that one doesn't, because some curses don't end, they only wait.
Welcome back to our channel. Tonight, we are sharing a terrifying true story sent to us by one of our listeners from the quiet backroads of Pennsylvania. What started as a normal life in a new home quickly turned into something no priest could fix, but someone else could. Sit back, turn off the lights, listen closely.
There was something wrong with the house on Birchwood Lane. It wasn't the creaky floors or the way the lights flickered in perfect rhythm at 3:17 a.m. every night, nor was it the way the air turned ice cold in the hallway outside the master bedroom, regardless of the season. No, the house's wrongness ran deeper, like it had a heartbeat of its own. And lately, that heartbeat was getting louder. The home belonged to a man named David Mercer, a 41-year-old English teacher who had moved to the quiet town of Ravens Hollow for a slower life. After his divorce, David wanted peace instead. He found Birchwood Lane. At first, it was little things. He'd wake up to find every cabinet in the kitchen wide open. He'd close them, shake his head, and blame himself for being groggy. A week later, his bedroom mirror cracked in a perfect diagonal line without a sound, without a cause. The repairman he called refused to come inside, muttering something about bad energy before leaving with his toolbox still in hand. That then came the whispers, not loud enough to make out words, but undeniably human. They slithered through the vents at night, sometimes soft like a child crying, sometimes harsh like chanting in a language David couldn't place. He stopped sleeping in his bedroom after he woke up to see muddy footprints leading from his closet to the side of his bed end. Stopping there, desperate, David confided in a colleague at work. "Maybe it's haunted," he said, half joking, hoping she'd laugh and call him paranoid. She didn't. Instead, she handed him the number of Father Thomas O'Shea, a local Catholic priest known for his work in difficult homes. "I don't believe in that stuff," David said, pocketing the number anyway. The next night, Birchwood Lane made him believe. David was jolted awake at 3:17 a.m. again, this time to a deep humming under his floorboards, like something mechanical. An ancient was waking up. He sat upright and screamed. There, at the foot of his bed, stood a figure. No face, no skin, just the faint outline of something blacker than the dark around it. It didn't move. It didn't speak. It simply stood there, until David bolted out of the house and drove to a 24-hour diner, where he stayed until the sun rose. The next morning, he called Father O'Shea. Father O'Shea arrived the same afternoon, wearing a simple black cassock and carrying a metal case that clinked with every step. "I've dealt with houses like yours before," the priest said calmly as he entered. "But I must warn you, some places aren't just haunted, some are," claimed. David didn't know what that meant, but he didn't care. He just wanted it gone. The priest moved through the home methodically, sprinkling holy water on doorframes, lighting a small candle in each room, and murmuring Latin prayers. As he walked, David followed silently behind, watching with equal parts hope and skepticism. At first, things seemed to improve. The air felt lighter, the temperature rose a little. Even the floorboards didn't groan as much. But then came the basement. As soon as Father O'Shea descended the stairs, the house changed. A low growl vibrated through the walls. The priest stopped on the third step from the bottom and turned to David. "Something's here. You didn't tell me about the basement." "I never go down there," David admitted. "It always felt wrong." The priest continued downward, reciting louder prayers now. David stood at the top of the stairs, his heart pounding, and then silence. No prayers, no footsteps, nothing. "Father." David called out. No answer. After what felt like forever, the priest came back up. His face was pale. His hands shook. "I need to return tomorrow," he said, "with help." That night, David tried to sleep, tried being the key word. The whispers returned, louder and clearer. This time, they were coming. From inside the walls, saying things that made no sense, but felt personal. He heard his name. He heard his mother's name. He heard things he hadn't told anyone since he was 12. The next morning, David woke up with bruises on his legs, finger-shaped bruises. Father O'Shea came back with another priest. They performed a full exorcism. Candles flickered violently. Books flew from shelves. Something laughed from inside the fireplace. The air turned metallic and thick, making it hard to breathe. They left after 4 hours, exhausted and pale. "We did what we could," the second priest said, avoiding David's eyes, but nothing changed. That night, the figure appeared again, closer this time, just a few feet from his bed, watching. David didn't scream this time. He just cried. Asterisk, asterisk. He was running out of options. He didn't want to stay, but he couldn't leave either. Something bound him to the house in ways he couldn't explain. Then one evening at the faculty lounge, someone gave him a strange suggestion. "Look, I know it sounds crazy," the janitor said, "but you tried a priest and it didn't work. Maybe you should try a different kind of holy man." David looked up. "Like who?" The janitor hesitated, then pulled out a wrinkled business card. A name written in Arabic, a number, and below it, religious consultant, spiritual cleansing and protection, an imam, David whispered. The janitor nodded. "I've seen him do things that priests couldn't." Father O'Shea didn't return. David waited 2 days after the second failed exorcism, hoping the priest would call or check in. He didn't. When David finally called the church, the secretary told him Father O'Shea had taken a sudden leave of absence for health reasons. She didn't offer more. She didn't have to. David already knew the house had broken him. The nights became unbearable. The figure he had stopped pretending it wasn't real grew bolder. It no longer stood at a distance. It moved closer, always closer. One night, David woke up to find it leaning over him, its form shifting like smoke. Trapped in human skin, its hand reached out, then vanished, just as it touched his chest. He screamed until his voice broke. He began sleeping with all the lights on. He boarded up the basement door. He stopped answering phone calls. His friends thought he was having a breakdown. Maybe he was. But breakdowns didn't leave claw marks on your ceiling, or smear words in your bathroom mirror backward and in ash. One word, again and again, taken. Desperation makes people try strange things. David lit candles in every room and played recordings of the Bible on loop. He buried crucifixes under his bed. He even tried burning sage after reading about it on a paranormal forum. Nothing worked. In fact, the The more he resisted, the more the house reacted like it enjoyed his struggle. And then, on the fourth sleepless night, he remembered the card. It had been sitting in his junk drawer under a stack of takeout menus. He pulled it out with shaking hands. The name on it read, Imam Yusuf Almansur, religious consultant, spiritual cleansing and protection. David stared at it for a long time. It felt wrong, somehow. Not because he had anything against Muslims, but because he had grown up believing only his faith could fight darkness. And yet, here he was, afraid to fall asleep, while the cross on his nightstand sat powerless and cold. He dialed the number. Imam Yusuf arrived the next afternoon. He wasn't what David expected. No long robe, no dramatic aura, just a middle-aged man in a dark green jacket and jeans, carrying a small satchel. His presence was calm, gentle. He didn't ask too many questions, and he didn't flinch when David described the thing in the house. "I will do what I can," he said simply. David hesitated. "Can I ask something first?" The Imam nodded. "Why? Would your prayers work if a priest couldn't stop it?" Yusuf smiled, not unkindly. "Because evil doesn't care what language you pray in, only that you mean it." That silenced David. They began in the living room. Imam Yusuf walked slowly through the house, murmuring verses from the Quran under his breath. Unlike the priests, who moved with ritualized precision, Yusuf walked like he was listening, really listening to the house. David noticed it too. The house felt different, like it was paying attention. When they reached the basement door, the Imam paused. "There's something sealed down here," he said quietly. "Did you disturb anything?" David shook his head. "I've barely gone down there, but the first time I did, I found a box. I didn't open it. It was tied shut with red thread." The Imam's eyes narrowed. "Show me." The box was still there, buried beneath the moldy tarp in the far corner of the basement. It was old, maybe older than the house itself. The red thread had faded to a brownish pink, and something about it made David's stomach turn. Imam Yusuf didn't touch it at first. He just knelt in front of it and began to recite. The moment he opened his mouth, the house groaned. Not the pipes, not the floorboards. The walls themselves seemed to protest, cracking in fine lines from corner to corner. The temperature dropped instantly. David's breath fogged in the air. Yusuf didn't stop. He recited louder, firmer. His voice echoed unnaturally through the basement. The shadows grew longer, darker. The box began to tremble, and then a scream. Not David's, not Yusuf's, but something inhuman, sharp and wet, like metal scraping bone. It filled the basement. Then the entire house. The box jerked once, then burst open. Inside was a lock of hair, a tiny clay figure with a needle through its chest, and a slip of paper scrawled with words David couldn't read. "Black magic," Yusuf said softly. "Old, powerful. Someone cursed this house, or perhaps cursed someone who once lived here." David stepped back. "Can you undo it?" "I can try," said the Imam, "but you must be present. You must want it gone." "I do," David whispered. They began the Ruqyan, Islamic spiritual cleansing at sunset. David sat cross-legged in the center of his living room while Yusuf recited verses from the Quran, beginning with Al-Fatiha, then Al-Baqarah. Air thickened again, but differently this time. Not suffocating, but resistant, like the house was trying to push back. The wind outside picked up, windows rattled. The lights flickered, but didn't go out. David felt heat rise in his chest, like something buried was being pulled upward. He clenched his fists. Tears streamed down his cheeks, not from fear, but from release. Then came the shrieks, not one voice, many dozens, wailing from the walls, the vents, the very floor beneath him. The room darkened, even with every lamp on. Shadows spilled from under doors, from behind furniture, writhing like smoke. Yusuf raised his voice, pushing the words harder. Faster, David screamed. The shadows recoiled, and just like that silence, the lights returned to normal. The cold lifted. The walls stopped whispering. Why? Us, UF, stood. On his forehead, "It's not over," he said, breathless. "But it's broken." David slept that night. For the first time in weeks, he didn't dream of black figures or hear whispers through the walls. The house felt hollow, but in a good way, like whatever had been inside was now gone or at least weakened. Tea the next morning and found Yusuf sitting on the porch. "Thank you," David said, voice cracking. Yusuf smiled. "Don't thank me, just live better." David nodded, unsure what that even meant, but grateful nonetheless. The house may have quieted, but silence is not always peace. For 3 days, David lived without incident. No whispers, no footsteps, no shadows curling in the corners of his vision. He began to believe it was truly over. He even called his ex-wife, just to hear a familiar voice. He didn't mention the Imam or the exorcisms, or the thing that had stood over his bed, only that he'd had a rough patch and was better now. But on the 4th night, as he passed the basement door, he stopped. The red thread that had once bound the cursed box David swore he had thrown it away was sitting neatly coiled on the doormat. He didn't touch it. Instead, he called Imam Yusuf. The Imam returned without hesitation. He examined the thread and nodded gravely. "The curse was undone," he said, "but not destroyed. It clings to this place like smoke to clothing." David's heart sank. "So what do we do now?" "We finish what someone else started," Yusuf replied. "We send it back." That night, the final cleansing began. Unlike before, this was not gentle. The prayers were forceful, commanding. David sat trembling in his chair, while Yusuf moved from room to room, reciting ayat after ayat. The Quran's verses filled the air like thunder, echoing off the walls, in a rhythm that made the floorboards shake. And then something answered, a voice from the attic. Low, male, yet layered with something inhuman. It spoke in a language neither man could understand, but its intent was clear. It did not want to leave. The attic door slammed open on its own. Yusuf didn't flinch. He climbed the stairs slowly, whispering verses as he went. David followed, every instinct screaming at him to run the other way. When they reached the attic, it was freezing, not cold freezing. Breath turned to crystals in the air. The bulb overhead popped, plunging them into darkness. But something else glowed in the center of the attic. Scrawled across the floor in what looked like rusted blood was a circle. Symbols David had never seen before surrounded it. At its center stood the figure. It had changed, no longer a formless shadow. It had taken on the suggestion of a Fisa, mocking, twisted resemblance of David himself. Smiling with hollow eyes and black tears streaming down its cheeks. "You should not have come back," it hissed in David's voice. Yusuf began to recite again. This time, louder, stronger. The figure shrieked. The circle caught fire. blue flames licking up through the floorboards without burning them. The figure writhed, screaming in voices not its own. A woman, a child, a man crying out for help. Centuries of pain in one voice. David covered his ears, but the sound was inside his head. "Don't stop," he shouted. "Keep going, Yusuf." The air exploded outward. Books flew, plaster cracked. The house itself felt like it might collapse. And then silence, total, deafening. Still, the figure was gone. So was the circle. So was the cold. Yusuf sat down heavily on the attic floor, sweat pouring down his face. "It's done," he said. David didn't speak. He couldn't. He just stared at the empty attic and wondered how close he'd come to dying. Or worse, the next morning, Yusuf prepared to leave. "Will it come back?" David asked. Yusuf paused. "Not to this place, but evil like that doesn't disappear. It waits, it searches, it finds the next broken place to nest in." David looked at him. "Then why does your prayer work? Why you, when the priest couldn't?" Yusuf smiled softly. "Because evil wears many names, and sometimes the cure does too." He got in his car and drove away. David watched until the car disappeared. Around the bend, weeks passed. The house remained quiet. David repaired the basement door, repainted the attic, and even started sleeping in his bedroom again. He told people he was feeling better, that he'd finally put the worst behind him. He didn't tell them about the nights when he still heard the faintest rustling in the walls, or how, every now and then, the lights still flickered just once at 3:17 a.m.
Welcome back to the channel. Tonight we are sharing a disturbing true story submitted by one of our viewers from Ohio. What started as a fun summer adventure turned into a horrifying experience for a group of childhood friends. And not all of them made it out the same.
Grab your headphones, turn off the lights, and listen closely. It was late July when the five of Usme, Caleb, Jaden, Isaiah, and Noah decided we were going to explore the abandoned research building just outside of town. It was the kind of place you always heard rumors about, that some sort of experiment went wrong in the 80s, that people went missing, that the building had been sealed off for a reason. But we were 12. And like any group of boys that age, we thought we were invincible. The building stood just past the woods that bordered our neighborhood, about a 20-minute bike ride away. We had all heard our older siblings joke about it, calling it the cold house, because of how freezing it supposedly stayed inside. Even in the middle of summer, Isaiah was the one who first brought it up seriously. "Let's just go," he said one afternoon, kicking a soccer ball around in Caleb's backyard. "What's the worst that could happen?" We all looked at each other. None of us wanted to be the scared one. So, the next day, with backpacks full of snacks, flashlights, and a couple of walkie-talkies, we made our way to the building. It was even creepier in person, tall, gray, and sunken into the earth like it had been trying to disappear for years. The windows were mostly shattered, but there were no signs of graffiti. No trash, none of the usual things you'd expect in a place that's been abandoned for decades. It felt ... untouched. The front door was chained shut, but Jaden found a broken panel near the back loading dock. We crawled through one by one. Inside, the air was thick and stale. like whatever had been breathing in there was long dead. The halls were lined with peeling paint, and our footsteps echoed as we moved deeper. The further we went, the colder it got. "No way," Caleb whispered. "Do you feel that?" We all nodded. It was at least 20 degrees cooler than outside. At first, we joked that it was because of all the cement or something, but deep down, it didn't feel like just cold air. It felt ... heavy, like something was pushing down on our shoulders. We reached a hallway that split in two. One path led to what looked like labs or offices. The other descended into darkness. Isaiah, of course, wanted to go down. "Come on, this is probably where they kept the freaky stuff." Against our better judgment, we followed. The stairwell was pitch black, and our flashlights barely pierced the shadows. As we reached the bottom, we realized we were in some kind of storage basement. Shelves of dusty equipment lined the walls, and a row of thick metal doors stood on the opposite side. Noah pointed at the last door. "Look." Scratched into the metal were letters barely visible, but still there. "Stay out." Isaiah laughed, walked up to it, and gave it a push. It didn't budge. Jaden tried the handle. Locked. "Probably for the best," I muttered. And that's when we heard it. A click, then another. Somewhere behind us, one of the other doors began to open. ... Slowly. We turned as one. The flashlight beams shook in our hands, but the room was empty. No one had touched the door. There was no draft, no wind. "Okay, maybe we should go," Caleb whispered. But just as we turned, the door we came through slammed shut. We ran, we bolted, up the stairs, down the hall, and didn't stop until we were back outside. We didn't speak. We just got on our bikes and pedaled back to town like our lives depended on it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that scratch tin warning, about the door opening on its own, about the air, the cold, the silence that seemed to press into our bones. But we were kids. We convinced ourselves it was just a draft, a coincidence, our imagination, until the next day, Jaden called me, panicking. His dog had been barking at his closet all night and wouldn't go near his room now. Caleb said he woke up with scratch marks on his arm. Noah's little sister started screaming in the middle of dinner, pointing at the corner of the dining room and yelling about the man in the wall. We were terrified, but we didn't tell anyone. What would we say? That we broke into a sealed government building and now something was following us. It didn't make sense, but every day it got worse. Isaiah was the first to stop coming outside. He said he was sick. He looked pale, sunken. When we went to check on him, his mom said he hadn't left his room in days. The rest of us started sleeping with our lights on. I stopped walking past mirrors. Jaden refused to go into the basement, even in daylight. Whatever we had brought back from that building, it wasn't done with us yet, and we were only just beginning to understand how bad things would get. The days following our trip became unbearable. Each of the boys carried something back with them, something they couldn't explain. Elijah stopped showing up at school. Tyler had nosebleeds every morning. Ben's eyes grew sunken like he hadn't slept in days. And Noah, he stopped speaking. Altogether, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Riley tried to hold the group together. He was the one who always acted like nothing could shake him. But that bravado was wearing thin. There were scratches on his bedroom wall every morning, horizontal claw-like gashes that hadn't been there the night before. His parents blamed the dog, But Riley knew better. They didn't own a dog. The others reported similar things. Footsteps pacing their hallways at night, whispering from behind closet doors. One night, Elijah's mother called Riley's house in tears. Elijah had disappeared. His bedroom was torn apart, his window wide open, despite the screen being untouched. They never found him. Tyler swore he saw something crawling on the ceiling of his room. He screamed so loud his neighbors called the police. But when officers arrived, there was nothing. Just a 15-year-old boy trembling under his bed, mumbling something about its eyes. Whatever had happened at the building hadn't stayed there. Riley was convinced the events weren't random. That night, he gathered Ben and Tyler in his garage, just like they used to before this all started. He brought a flashlight, snacks, and a pile of old maps and books he'd stolen from his dad's collection. "I think we triggered something," Riley said, voice low. "That building was sealed for a reason." Ben shook his head. "We didn't do anything. We were only there a few minutes." "You saw what happened to the mirror," Tyler whispered. "That voice, it said our names." There was silence. For a while, then Riley pulled out something new, a newspaper clipping, yellowed and brittle. "Look at this. 22 years ago, kids went missing in that same building. No remains were ever found, just gone." Ben leaned closer, reading the headline. 5 teens vanish in abandoned water treatment facility. Search called off after 2 weeks. Tyler looked pale. "How'd you find this?" "My dad keeps everything," Riley said. "He used to be a reporter." The room went cold. Ben shivered. "What do we do?" Riley didn't answer at first. "We go back." "No," Tyler said immediately. "Absolutely not. We need to find Elijah. We need to fix this." Ben hesitated. "If we go back, we might not come out." "That's the point," Riley muttered. "This thing is attached to us. It won't let go unless we force it to." It took some convincing, but by midnight, the next night, the 3 boys stood outside the building once again, flashlights, phones, and a single crowbar between them. The place hadn't changed. Same broken windows, same warped door. But the air felt thicker now, like the building was breathing. They stepped inside. The smell hit them immediately: mold, rust, and something fouler, like rotting meat. Their footsteps echoed strangely, like the place had more space inside than its exterior allowed. "This is where we heard it," Riley said, shining his flashlight at the cracked mirror. Only now there were words scratched into the glass. "I'm not done." Ben stepped back. "That wasn't there before." "Neither were those," Tyler whispered, pointing at the floor. "Footprints, barefoot. Human, but too long, the toes misshapen and clawed, led into a hallway none of them had noticed last time." Riley took the lead. As they moved deeper into the building, the air got colder. The lights from their flashlights began flickering. Their phones lost signal. And then they heard it low, at first, like the hum of an old refrigerator. Then it turned into a voice. "Benjamin." Ben froze. Nope, I'm done." But before he could turn around, something slammed the door behind them, shut, metal on metal, locked. They were trapped. Tyler ran to the door, yanking on the handle, but it didn't budge. "We need to keep moving," Riley said. "Panic is what it wants." They followed the hallway. Strange symbols covered the walls, etched in something dark and flaking. The voice kept whispering, now shifting from one boy's name to another. And then the screaming began. They rounded a corner and saw Elijah standing in the center of a large room. arms hanging limp at his sides. His eyes were black, no pupils, just void. "Elijah," Ben whispered. The thing tilted its head. "No, that's not him," Tyler said. Elijah opened his mouth, but the voice that came out wasn't his. "You came back. How kind," Ben screamed. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed them. Whole dot, then dash, just silence. When Riley opened his eyes, he was outside the building, alone. His flashlight was gone, his clothes torn. There was dried blood on his shirt. No sign of Ben, no sign of Tyler, no sign of Elijah. He stumbled home at dawn. His parents were frantic. They called the police. Search teams combed the area, but no one else was found. Riley didn't speak for 2 days. When he finally did, he only said one thing: "It made me choose." The knocking at the window started again that night, but this time it wasn't just one knock. It was a rhythm: 3 slow taps, then silence, then again, like someone was trying to teach them a code. Aiden hadn't slept. None of the remaining kids had. After Mason's disappearance and the strange markings that had started showing up on their bedroom walls, the group knew they were being followed, hunted. Aiden had stopped trying to convince his parents. They thought he was having some sort of breakdown. So he stopped talking altogether. He just waited for the next sign. It came sooner than he expected. That night, Aiden was in his room, lights off, lying still in bed, when he heard the scraping sound. Not from the window this time, but from under the bed. He held his breath. Something whispered his name. Not aloud, but inside his head. As if the room itself knew who he was. "You can stop this." He couldn't move, couldn't speak. "You know what it wants." In the reflection of his closet mirror, he saw the same silhouette that had stalked them in the building. That faceless, hunched thing. Only this time, it had grown larger. Its limbs stretched unnaturally long. Its head nearly touching the ceiling. Aiden screamed, but no one came. The next morning, he woke up on the floor, his voice hoarse, his nose bleeding. The thing was gone, but not completely. It had left something. On the mirror, a single word, written in thick, black ash: choose. 2 more kids vanished that day. Jenna and Theo. Both had refused to talk about what happened in the building. Both had begged their parents to move out of town. Neither were believed, and now they were gone. Aiden was the last one left. No, not. The last Neko was still there, but Nico hadn't come out of his house in days. He wasn't answering calls. His mother had posted something weird on Facebook, something like, "He just needs rest. He's been seeing things." Aiden knew what that meant. The thing had gotten to him. That night, Aiden went back to the building, alone. He didn't bring a flashlight. He didn't bring his phone. He brought a box of matches and the note he had found stuffed in his backpack. Earlier that day, it hadn't been there that morning. It was written in a hand that wasn't his. "There is only one way to end this. One stays. The rest are taken. You know what must be done." The building was colder than it had been before. Everything was too still. Even the air didn't move. He walked to the place where the pentagram had been painted. It was gone, scrubbed clean. But he could still see the outline, like it was burned into the concrete. He sat in the middle and lit a match. "Come out," he said. Nothing answered. Then the sound of feet dragging on the cement. Aiden turned around. From the shadows emerged Nico. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands trembling. "You got the note too?" Aiden asked. Nico nodded. then shook his head. I wrote it. I don't know why. I wasn't in control. It made me. Aiden felt something shift in the room. The shadows deepened. The air grew heavy. Something was coming. You said, there's only one way out, Aiden whispered. Nico nodded again, tears forming in his eyes. It wants us to choose. One stays. The whisper filled the building like a scream. Then silence. Then the walls began to bleed. Yes, bleed. Dark, thick liquid poured from the concrete, from cracks in the ceiling, pooling around their shoes. Aiden backed away. No, we're not doing this. But Nico was already on his knees, muttering something under his breath, something that sounded like begging. The thing appeared behind him, its limbs now stretched across the walls, like a massive spider. Its face leaned down toward Nico, pressing close to his ear. Aiden watched in horror as Nico looked up and said, "Take him." The shadows rushed forward. Aiden screamed. When Aiden opened his eyes, he was outside the building. It was morning. Police cars were everywhere. A crowd had gathered. Someone was shouting about missing kids, about fires in the night, about strange things caught on nearby surveillance cameras, figures that couldn't be explained, shapes that moved too fast, too tall. Aiden stood in the chaos. Alone. He didn't speak. Not for days. When his parents tried to talk to him, he'd just repeat, "He chose me. He chose me." Eventually, people stopped asking questions. The town tried to move on, but strange things still happened. Lights flickered in houses that had been empty for years. Kids talked about nightmares where a faceless creature whispered secrets to them in their sleep. And Aiden, he grew up, he moved away, started over. But sometimes, late at night, he'd wake up with a voice in his head, a voice that wasn't his. One stays, one always stays. And every year, on the same night, Aiden would dream of a building bathed in red light, with 5 kids standing in a circle. Except this time, he wasn't the one being chosen. He was the one doing the choosing. Except this time, he wasn't the one being chosen. He was the one doing the choosing. And if you're still here, listening, in the dark, be careful what you choose next. If you enjoy stories like this, you can subscribe to the channel and come back with us when the darkness calls again.
Welcome to the channel. Some doors were never meant to be open. Claire, Dalen and Travis never expected their lives to collide with the same dark secret. 3 knocks in the dead of night, and nothing would ever be the same again. The question is, if you found that door, would you dare to knock?
Most people lock their doors at night out of habit, not fear. For Claire, it was both. Ever since she moved into the aging 2-story house on Oak Ridge Lane, she never shook the feeling that someone was watching her. It wasn't just nerves, something was off. The house creaked at strange hours. Her dog, Berkeley, refused to go upstairs after dark. Small things, keys, mail, socks, kept disappearing and reappearing in odd places. At first, Claire blamed herself. She was tired, overworked, adjusting to a new city and a new job. She had recently broken up with her boyfriend and needed space. This old rental house, dusty but cheap, seemed like the perfect solution. But within the first week, the quirks had started. It all started with the spare room upstairs. The landlord had told her it was just used for storage. There was no lock on the door, just a slightly rusted handle. Claire had opened it once. When she first moved in, it was filled with old furniture, a covered mirror leaning against the wall, and a heavy smell of mold and mothballs. Since then, she had kept the door shut. Out of sight, out of mind, but that's not where the story were. Begins 3 days ago. Claire came home from work on a rainy Wednesday evening. As she stepped through the front door and shook off her umbrella, she noticed something strange. The light in the spare room was on. She froze. She never turned that light on. Claire walked slowly up the creaking stairs. Barkley barked from below, but refused to follow her. She hesitated for a second before reaching out and twisting the handle. The door opened easily. The light bulb in the ceiling flickered. The room looked the same, still dusty, still filled with forgotten furniture. But one thing had changed. The mirror. It wasn't leaning against the wall anymore. It was mounted perfectly straight in the far wall. It was clean, spotless. Not a single speck of dust on it. Claire stared at her reflection. Remember moving it? She didn't remember cleaning it. She didn't even remember touching it since the day she moved in. But there it was, practically gleaming, trying to shake the chill that crept up her spine. Claire reached up and turned off the light. She closed the door and walked away. That night, she couldn't sleep. Akeley whimpered at her bedside, staring. At the closed bedroom door, around 2 a.m., Claire thought she heard footsteps above her, but the spare room was directly over her own. The next morning, she found a sandwich missing from the fridge. She lived alone. She told herself she had probably eaten it and forgotten. She was tired, that was all. People forget things. She set up a camera in the kitchen not because she expected anything, but just for peace of mind. The footage that evening was normal. Nothing strange, nothing at all. Until the timestamp hit 2:34 a.m., a figure entered the frame, barefoot, pale, male. He moved slowly, carefully, as if trying not to make a sound. He went to the fridge, took out the last slice of pizza, and ate it over the sink. Then he stood perfectly still for nearly 5 minutes. Then, he looked directly into the camera. Claire stopped the video. She couldn't breathe. There was no sign of forced entry, no broken windows, no unlocked doors. The man wasn't breaking in. Asterisk, asterisk, he was already inside. She called the police. Immediately, they searched the house from top to bottom. Every closet, every crawl space, every cabinet. Nothing they checked. The attic empty. They even inspected the basement, which Claire hadn't visited since she moved in. Still nothing. The officers were polite, but Claire could tell they didn't believe her. They said it might have been a prank. The footage could have been faked. That the man could have left through the back door before she woke up. But Claire knew better. Someone was hiding in her house, and they were watching her. Next night, she left all the lights on. She sat on the couch with Barkley and a baseball bat clutched tightly in her lap. She didn't sleep. Nothing happened. The night after that, she went upstairs to the spare room. She had to check. She had to know. The mirror was gone. In its place was a hole in the wall, about the size of a dinner plate, just big enough to see through. On the other side was darkness. But she could swear she saw movement. Someone had been watching her through the wall. Claire stumbled back and ran to her phone. She called the police again, this time begging them to come back. When they arrived, she showed them the hole in the wall, but it was gone. The wall was whole. No damage, no hole, just a perfectly clean mirror mounted on the wall. Claire stared in horror. One of the officers gently put a hand on her shoulder. "Ma'am, are you sure you're feeling all right?" She was losing her mind. That's what I thought, and maybe she was. That night, she went to a hotel. She didn't even pack a bag. She just left. But sometime around 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. It was a notification from her home security app. Motion detected, upstairs hallway. Claire opened. The feed was shaking hands, the image was grainy, but the face was clear. It was him, the same pale man. He was standing in front of the spare, room looking into the camera, smiling. The following morning brought no clarity, only deeper unease. Dylan had woken up in the motel bed, stiff from sleep, and with a metallic taste in his mouth. His shoes were still on. The television was hissing with static, and his phone, which he swore he'd plugged in, was completely dead. Outside. The world was wrapped in a gray fog that swallowed the horizon. Checked the time on the cracked motel wall clock. 9:12 a.m. He sat up slowly, rubbing his face. The dream, if it had been a dream, still clung to him. He remembered the thick darkness, the cold, the sense of being watched. But most of all, he remembered the sound, a faint knocking, not from his motel door, but from underneath. Somewhere beneath the floorboards. He shook off the feeling and decided to get some air. Maybe even head back toward the bridge. Could find Tyler again and figure out what the hell that place had been. Something about the location didn't add up. And the more he thought about it, the more he was certain that the decaying building they'd entered wasn't just an abandoned research facility. There had been carvings, strange ones. Symbols burned into the wood, and to smell like sulfur and rotting earth. As he stepped outside, he'd noticed something unsettling. His car had been moved. It was still in the parking lot, but it was now parked 2 spaces to the left of where he remembered. So the driver's side door was slightly ajar. He checked the car. Nothing missing. Nothing added, except a small bundle of twine, tied into a perfect triangle, sat on his passenger seat. Dylan froze. It was the same symbol they'd seen carved into the desk drawer back at the abandoned building. Tyler had pointed it out. They joked about it being a cult thing, but it was no joke now. Instead of going back toward the bridge, Dylan found himself driving in the opposite direction, away from town, away from the motel, and away from whatever it was that had followed him. He didn't know where he was going, only that the further he got from the fog, the better he could breathe. After about an hour of aimless driving, he spotted a small cafe off the side of the road. It looked ancient, wooden siding, a slanted roof, and a faded sign that read, Mary's Hollow Diner. Inside, it was empty except for a woman behind the counter and an elderly man hunched over a newspaper. He ordered coffee, took a seat by the window, and tried to calm himself. But as he reached into his jacket pocket for his wallet, he found something that made his stomach drop. A Polaroid photo. He hadn't taken any pictures, but here it was, an image of the abandoned building they'd visited, taken from outside. The windows dark, the trees around it dead and twisted, and in the bottom right corner, a shadowy figure stood, barely visible, as if it had been captured mid-movement. He turned the photo over. On the back, written in smeared black ink, were the words, "Go back before IT finds you." Dylan shot up from his seat, his heart hammering in his chest. The woman at the counter looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You okay?" she asked, voice dry and low. Dylan hesitated. "Do you know a place? Near the bridge? Abandoned research building?" She stared at him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "That ain't a research building," she said. "Used to be a church, back before they sealed it up. Way before your time." "Church?" She nodded again. "Mary's Hollow Chapel. That's what it was called? Place got closed up after what happened to the preacher." Dylan leaned in. "What happened to him?" The woman's eyes narrowed, tried to bury something that shouldn't have been disturbed. "That land ... it ain't right." Before Dylan could ask more, the elderly man stood up and walked toward him. His hands trembled, and his voice was barely above a whisper. "You said you went there?" he asked. Dylan nodded. The man looked at him with deep pity. "Then you brought it back with you. You opened the gate." That night, Dylan couldn't sleep. He had checked into a different motel miles away from the first one, thrown away the Polaroid, and triple locked the door, but nothing helped. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the knocking started again, not from the door, from underneath the bed. He sat frozen, afraid to move. The knocking grew louder, rhythmic, almost like a code. 3 knocks, pause. 2 knocks, pause. 1 knock. He slid off the bed slowly, heart pounding, crouched to look underneath. There was nothing there, except for a deep scratch in the floorboards, another triangle. This one carved into the wood, with a small smear of blood at the center.
Suddenly, the lights flickered. The TV turned on by itself. Static again. And then he heard the voice. Warped, garbled, but clear enough to understand. You opened it. The screen flashed. For a split second, an image appeared. A door. Walls. A deep, descending staircase. Then it was gone. Dylan knew what it meant. Whatever he had entered at that old building, it hadn't been a facility. It was a passage, a gateway, and now it was open. The next morning, Dylan tried calling Tyler again. This time, someone answered, but it wasn't Tyler. The voice on the other end was hollow, like it was speaking from inside a metal drum. "You're too late." "Who is this?" Dylan shouted. The line went dead. He stared at his phone. The call had lasted exactly 13 seconds. 13, a number etched into the wall at the bridge. Everything was connected. The bridge, the church, the motel, the photo, the diner, each a piece of a puzzle he didn't understand. But now he was part of it, and something was hunting him. By the time Travis stumbled back through the trees and into the clearing, where his car was parked, the night had turned silent against to silent. The birds, the crickets, even the wind seemed to have retreated from the world, like nature itself was holding its breath. His chest heaved, each inhale painful and shallow. His shirt was torn, his hands scraped, and his mind rattled with everything he'd just seen. He paused at the edge of the clearing and turned to look back at the woods. There was no sign of the building, not even the faintest glow of light or silhouette through the trees. But he knew it was still there. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it had never really been there. That night, Travis didn't go home. He drove around. 4 hours, windows down, the cold air keeping him awake, his mind trying to rationalize what had happened. When he finally made it to his apartment just before dawn, he locked the door, closed every curtain, and sat on his couch until the sun was high in the sky. He didn't sleep for the next 3 days. It was only when his boss called to ask why he hadn't shown up to work that Travis finally broke his silence. He told him he was sick. It wasn't a lysome thing was wrong. His body was fine, mostly. A few bruises, a shallow cut near his collarbone, but something deeper had shifted inside him. It was like part of him was still back there, caught behind that door, listening to that slow, deliberate knocking. He considered telling someone, the police, a paranormal investigator, his family. But how do you explain something like this? There was a building, he mumbled to himself one night, in the woods. It shouldn't have been there. It wasn't long before the dreams started. First, they were just flashes. The hallway, the scorched door, the torn wallpaper, the pentagram on the floor. Then came the sound knock, knock. Knock always 3 times. Rhythmic, mocking, familiar, sometimes. He'd wake up standing in the middle of his apartment, his hands bleeding from pounding on the wall. Other nights, he woke up and found his door slightly open. He always locked it before going to bed. Always then. One night, someone knocked 3 times, slow, measured, just like before. He stared at the door for what felt like an hour, heart thudding so hard it hurt. He didn't move, didn't breathe. When he finally gathered enough courage to check through the peephole, no one was there. Still, he didn't open it. Travis began researching. He spent hours online looking into local legends, disappearances, anything that might be tied to that area of woods. He came across a few message boards that talked about the place that moves or the house that follows. It was always vague, someone claiming their brother vanished during a camping trip, a hunter finding an old building where it shouldn't be. But there was one post that caught his attention. It was from a woman who said her son had gone missing. In 1996, after visiting the Knock house, she described a door in the middle of an otherwise empty structure, marked with black scorch marks and symbols carved into the frame. He had dared to knock 3 times. She said he came back. He wasn't the same. He stopped speaking. He stopped sleeping. Then, one night, he vanished from their home. The post ended abruptly. No responses. No follow. Up. Travis tried to message her. No reply. Her account had been inactive for over a decade. He couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. He came back, but he wasn't the same. Weeks passed. Travis isolated himself, afraid to tell anyone what he was experiencing. The knocks returned every night now. Always at 3:13 a.m., he stopped checking the door. He tried sleeping with earplugs, but the sound didn't go away. It was inside his head. And then, one morning, he woke up to find something new. A note had been slid under his door. 3 knocks to open, 3 knocks to come back. He turned it over. Nothing on the back. No name, no explanation, but the handwriting looked familiar. His own. That night, Travis made a decision. He returned to the woods. It didn't matter how insane it sounded. He had to see it again. He had to know if it was real or if he was losing his mind. But when he got there, nothing. No clearing, no building, just endless trees and quiet. He stayed out there for hours, walking in circles, whispering into the dark. I knocked 3 times. What do you want? No answer. Then, just as he was about to give up and leave, he saw it. A door, just a door, standing alone in the middle of the forest. No walls, no roof, no frame, just the door. The same one, blackened. Edges, carved symbols, cold metal handle. His breath caught in his throat. He approached slowly, the forest around him dead silent. He could feel it like pressure building in his skull, like the trees themselves were watching. He raised his hand, knocked once, twice, 3 times. The door creaked open. When Travis didn't show up for work that week, no one was surprised. He'd been acting strange for months. A neighbor later told police that she heard something from his apartment the night he disappeared. She described it as knocking, like someone was at his door, but not a person. Too slow, too heavy. The police found the door locked from the inside. No sign of struggle, no forced entry, nothing stolen, just gone. They filed the report. Another missing person. Nothing they hadn't seen before. A month later, a man named Jacob Simmons was hiking in a different part of the same forest, almost 20 miles from where Travis had last been seen. He was off trail, following what he thought was an animal path, when he came across something strange. A door, alone in the woods. He took a picture, but the file corrupted when he tried to upload it. He joked about knocking on it with his friends. Later that night, none of them thought much of it, not until Jacob stopped answering his phone. Some doors were never meant to be open, and if you find one that shouldn't be, they're standing alone in a place where no building exists. Do yourself a favor. Don't knock. Not even once, especially not 3 times.